Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the Yo Video Games podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who've kept us going for over 500 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideoGamesPodcast. Dude of the week is Chris P.
Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate you. I think you've been dude of the week before, but maybe a couple of years ago, which means you've been around a while. Love you for it, man. So last week we did a Nintendo didn't bring the BDE. They didn't drop it out on the table.
Yeah, really was I was like just sort of angry with the direct, and then I was just kind of like, and then it's the sort of it was like the Phantom Menace all over again, where you go to see this movie. It's a new Star Wars. It's got to be great. It's great, but it's like it's sort of, but it's really not, and it's like it just eats away at you. Maybe Phantom Menace is actually a bad example because I was actually more angry at the end of it than I was later on, where it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I guess later on,
children's movie, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to, but it was hard to walk away from that. And people have kind of like done the math for like what things are costing that they announced at that direct in other countries.
Yeah,
and even with like VAT tax, and even with comparing or exchange rating, people are paying less than America for like the first time ever.
But yeah,
for stuff usually by like
tariffs, right?
Yeah, like between like 10 to $20, people are paying less. Like, the Virtual Boy thing in Australia is even with it all shake it out, it's $90. It's equivalent to $90 US instead of $100 we're paying here, and amiibos and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, well, here's a really kind of like, oh man, this just they had a bunch of different amiibos they announced. Like, they announced Metroid ones, they announced Mario ones, they announced the Kirby ones. We know the Kirby ones were super expensive, but they announced these sort of bigger, they're like kind of bigger, more like diorama almost, just like the bigger Mario, bigger Rosalina, and they're $39.99. And the Mario and Rosalina amiibo that came out with Smash Bros were $12.99. They are literally 3 times as much now, and they're not 3 times bigger.
Yeah, well, I mean, how much of that really is tariffs, though, or is the uncertainty around tariff? Like, that's not Nintendo.
I mean, I guess it is when it's literally cheaper in other countries.
So this is something that we talked to one of the patrons about. Zyber was talking about like value add, and this inspired this episode. To summarize, the topic was just sort of like, with everything getting more expensive, from AAA to AA to, budget, the above $50 versus below $50, like, is the value still there? Like, is the value for gaming the same as it was?
There's 2 excellent examples of sort of like price value, which people are aware of, and it happened this year, and they are the 2 biggest games in the conversation for game of the year. That is the $50 at launch Expedition 33 and the $20 at launch Silk Song.
Right.
They're big games. They're full games. Like Expedition 30, like Sandfall was, they were really smart. They were ahead of the curve where they're like, hey, we're launching a brand new IP, and we're doing it in a genre that's kind of exclusive to Japan, and we're making it from France and, from help from all over the world. Like, we're kind of, we're coming in this from a small publisher with Kepler, and it's a new IP and it's a new idea. So we're just going to charge 50 and kind of hope for the best. Blew their expectations out of the water. I mean, the game is really high quality, of course, but like, that is a $70 game being sold at 50. And Hollow Knight Silk Song, at $20, indies are getting mad at Silk Song for being so big, so good, and
undercharging.
Yeah, and undercharging, $20. And again, to reiterate, the friend slop, as they're called, the Lethal Companies, the Repos, and the Peak, these are games. Right. Peak is $8, goes on sale for like $5 often. Repos the same way, but that's early access technically, but it doesn't matter. It's made all the money it ever needs to make in early access sales at like $8, and people are just having a good time. Among Us was like $5, right? Like,
yeah, I got it. I think I got it for $2.
Right, and it sold tons and tons and tons of copies, made Inner Sloth able to become a publishing outlet for other small indies called Outer Sloth because it just made so much money off of Among Us sales and merchandise from it. So, and people are having a great time. They're having hours and hours of content delivered to them. Some of it like excellent multiplayer content with these $8 experiences. You know, things that are less than a combo meal at any fast food. I don't know what it is, what it's like, you know, in the tainted South down there for a combo meal, but out here on the best coast, it's expensive.
It
It's
is
to
quite a
get
bit
it home.
cheaper, uh, and there's plenty of good stuff.
But I
I
mean,
don't.
can you go to okay, Hardee's, I guess we'll call it now. Can you go to a Hardee's and get a double Western bacon cheeseburger combo meal for $8 or less? I'd be
No, I
curious.
don't. I don't think it'd be $8 or less, but definitely like $10.
Right.
I think we went to like Jack's, which is not Jack in the Box. It's like its own thing just out here. It's the only
Mhm.
place I've ever seen it is here. And like two double cheeseburgers and fries was like $16, $17 or something like that.
Right. So you're spending a whole lot less for a game like Peak and Repo Among Us, and you're getting a whole lot of content, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think that the value, I guess, formula. No, formula is not the equation. The value equation is drastically skewed right now. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is this. There are plenty of games that feel like $70 games. But how long have we been at the $70 price point?
Since what?
F-
PS4?
5 years?
No, PS5, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
PS4 was $60 games, I think. Maybe
Yeah, I
I'm
think it was.
misremembering it.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
about right.
PS5 that
PS5 jumps it to 70, and the Nintendo's trying to jump it to 80, but kind of had to walk
right.
that back.
Yeah, because it's insane. It's an insane thing to, and that was before they said anything about tariffs. That was
They've never really addressed the why, but you have to think there. The Nintendo sitting there thinking like, well, we want to really show people that it's a Switch 2 game. It's a much more
I'll
premium product. So
no, I'll tell you
we
why.
should
Line
tell
must go up.
because line must go up. Really, yeah,
That's what it is. It's a religion. It is a line must go up is just a weird religion that every corporation has fallen into. Line always go up. Oh, it
yeah,
don't go up, buy the dip. Oh, it's just temporary. Line always go up. There's no the the reason why it's been enshittified is that they are looking for more and more ways to maximize profit to the detriment of literally anything else. They don't care about the customer anymore. No corporation even thinks about the customer anymore. They say they do, but they don't. They're literally targeting investors.
yeah. Line
Period.
must go up. That's it.
Yeah, line must go up. Um, and I after we didn't really even shit on Nintendo. I defended them. I think it was a pretty good direct. I wasn't
But I mean, a
expecting
33% increase
right.
on your first party product, you know, going from 60 to 80, you know, a 33.3 increase of the cost of your product, you know, and listen, you know, because that's about right, a third,
Yeah.
basically. What would be a third? That's ridiculous. That's not just inflation. That's insanity.
It, it's something that like you can't and there are people now that'll be like, "Oh yeah, but it's because they were expecting tariffs. They were trying to anticipate tariffs." And I don't think that's true. Cuz right now they're trying to anticipate tariffs and they don't know what to do. Right now they have to anticipate tariffs and they are confused. They themselves have said that they are sort of uh confused about what to do. They don't know what to tell anybody, any of their
Mhm.
developers, any of the people making peripherals and stuff. They don't know what to say to them. So it's not like they're doing this or they did this in anticipation of tariffs being reasonable. And
Yeah.
granted, the tariffs that are being set aren't rereasonable.
Oh, that's the
They
thing
are
too.
ridiculous.
Is like they're overreaching because and the thing is, I don't want to discredit like how bad, you know, these things are, but it's like the small Metroid amiibos, like Mimos, I think I said
Meals.
Mimos, the Samus and the I don't know if it was Silex or whatever, like the small amiibos
Right.
for Metroid Prime 4 are $29.99. And then the big ones for Mario Galaxy next year are $39.99. And then the Kirby ones are $49.99.
Yeah, it's wild.
But those small Samus amiibos are $29.99. Again, the Smash Brothers amiibos are $12.99. So this is not a 50% increase. This is not even a 100% increase. This is somewhere in the neighborhood of $3, like 100, just like 130% increase for the same size amiibo from Smash Brothers to Metroid Prime 4. For the same amount of plastic and size, they're charging 130% more.
But
I'm bad with math, but correct me if I'm wrong. If you went from $12.99 to $29.99, you're
I believe
more
that's
than
like 100 and something
yeah,
percent
it's like
increase.
130. You're more than doubling because double your 100% increase is double. So you're more than 130% increase on your amiibos. And
But
then
this
it's
begs
200, 300% increase for the Mario one. This is blatant enshittification.
it's and everyone's doing it. Nintendo's not even just the only one doing it. It's
Right.
just Nintendo got caught out because they've also been pretty obvious about it forever. But this begs the question. We talked about it last week. This week, is there anybody that's bringing it for next year? Like, there's good games coming out next year.
Oh, for sure. There'll
Um,
be many good games next year.
but is any first party really selling the generation? Is there anybody that's actually saying
Right.
like this is
And
this is
this and it
generation
goes
defining?
it goes right back to kind of the point that I know people weren't really getting, and I see it even very well spoken, very well thought out responses to our last podcast. Like were but well the thing is I love X franchise. Like let me pick on Fire Emblem here. I love Fire Emblem, so I was going to get it no matter what, and I'm happy for it. But again, it kind of to me, the thing is, I might pick up the new Fire Emblem. I might be intrigued by it. I enjoyed Three Houses. I bought Three Houses at full price. I enjoyed it, but again, you bought a $500 system. You should be expecting the games on that $500 system to sort of take advantage of it. And again, they're going to sell that game for $70. They might possibly even sell Fire Emblem Fortunes Wii for $80.
Mhm.
They might do a 33% increase from what Three Houses cost on the Switch, and it does not look any better graphically. That is the definition of enshittification. Enshittification, by definition, is they start selling you the product they're offering, they take stuff away from it, and they sell it to you for more. Cost goes up, service goes
Quality
down.
and yeah, it goes
Quality
down.
and service goes down. Now, I'm not saying the quality or service goes down, but they're going to sell you a Fire Emblem game next year that will probably be a very good game, but they could easily have the audacity to charge $80 for it. I think they might not. I think what they'll probably do is they'll sell it for $70, which is still an enshittification of a game that is going up in price, but they are not actually spending more on the budget of making the game, and they're
They'll
certainly not trying any harder. But here's the other part. As I realized with Donkey Kong, they'll take something that was post game or end game and they're going to chop it and then sell it to you a couple months later for $20.
right.
So you will buy a $70 game and then 2 months later, oh, here's a little bonus add-on post-game stuff. It's 20 extra bucks. That game just became $90.
I think an interesting thing here is we've seen a bunch of inflation. The only thing that causes deflation is terrible economy, downturn, and they've got to suddenly cut prices to get any sales at all. And the good bad news is, well, it's looking like that's coming. Mass layoffs before Christmas, everybody. You heard it here first. I don't know if
I
that's
mean,
gonna.
I
I
think
hope it doesn't
I
happen,
think
but
when shit really really hits the fan more than it already has, I think Nintendo's going to weather this storm the best. because Nintendo is the smart one where it's like you hear me whining about this, but they're also that also is what makes them smart, but not in any benefit to you. But they're smart because yeah, we just kept making the same game at the same budget. You know, we didn't hire a ton of people. I mean, they have hired a lot of people, but like we didn't hire a ton of people. We didn't suddenly skyrocket the budget for these games.
Yeah, and we
You know,
didn't lay off 3 teams.
right. Like
Yeah, yeah.
for example, your favorite game director of all time recently stated in an interview that Intergalactic is quite possibly the most expensive game Sony has ever made,
Ah, great.
which is not even a selling point anymore. And I don't think he was trying to use it
No.
as a selling point, but he was talking about like, you know, how much of a heavy burden responsibility he has, blah 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 blah. And at this point, it's almost like I really do hope that game's good. And I'm actually on board with that game. I love the fact that Naughty Dog's doing something like that.
Yeah, but
I love it.
who's the narrative lead on it? Because that's another thing is like
Him. Him
well,
and he name dropped someone else. I forget who. Um
well, a lot of people go like, "Oh, Druckmann was the writer for The Last of Us 2." He was not. He co-wrote some stuff and he was the director, but he was not the narrative lead
right.
writer. I don't remember lead.
Well, the thing is, we know from Discovery in that Microsoft buys Activision lawsuit,
Haley Gross.
where Sony tried to stonewall this. We know Last of Us 2 costs, I think, $220 million. So they spend $220 million to make Last of Us Part 2. And they're spending more we could lowball it at $250 million or more is going to go into Intergalactic. And that's kind of where you start to sit there and you kind of start to wonder like, okay, I'm not going to diminish the talent at Naughty Dog in any way, shape, or form. But there is part of you that has to sit back and wonder and go, holy God, really?
Well, I don't think that we've already talked about several times that game development has gotten too bloated, too expensive.
I mean, to
Something's gonna
me,
have to give.
I think what should have given first and foremost was the marketing side of things. Like, I hate to say,
Well,
I hate to say it to someone who was in marketing, but I'm like, really, you guys, that's a house of cards in my mind. Like Jeff Keighley sitting there, like, well, you need, $500,000, $250,000 to have a trailer at the TGS. Fuck you. I'll just put it on YouTube. Like, how about that?
well, the thing is, but that money spent with him actually is decently planned marketing. The eyes that are watching
It is
his
true
show.
to an extent, though.
But where it gets stupid is buying millions of dollars worth of billboards for your Spider-Man game all over cities everywhere.
Yeah.
Billboards don't target the audience that you want anyway. And also, who needs to be reminded about Spider-Man?
Which is
Like,
always my point, but they're saying like, oh, the marketing was super important for that game. You needed it to get to those like 10 million sales or whatever the hell it was. And I'm just
and
like,
it's, I mean, no, it is true. It is true. Marketing is as important as it's ever been. Getting people to pay attention in this day and age is actually quite hard. It's just that smart marketing is less and less common. Period. And I don't want to pretend like I'm some expert on marketing. I'm just saying, like, from my own personal experience for the short time that I was in it, and from several very smart marketers that I know and talk to regularly, like you have a change from marketing is and always was propaganda, and good marketing is good propaganda. That's what it is. And then you have data driven marketing. And there is data in marketing, and there is and people who actually do know what they're doing about collecting the data they want are doing good things with that data. The thing is that data, the bucket term data, is cover for a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. They learned Google Analytics at some point and got a certification, and then they're data-driven marketers. And they can tell you all the number. I worked for a guy that was he would have me make a report, every week about nominal increases in the YouTube channels that we were managing, because he knew that he could hold it up. No one was going to read it, but he could hold it up in a meeting and go like, well, if you check it out, we're increasing by so and so percent. And no one ever read the reports, but he could say the number was line going up. So I must be doing something good.
Here's an interesting thing
Data-driven marketer.
here's an interesting thing about data-driven marketing. I thought was kind of fascinating. I saw this right before we recorded. Stream Charts, streamcharts.com listed their biggest gaming / tech showcases of 2025 based on total peak viewers of each live streamed event. This is from January 1st to September 12th, 2025.
Okay.
At the bottom right now, as of the top 5, was that Nintendo Switch only direct, Switch 1 only direct on March 27th, 2.72 million viewers. In 4th place is that Apple showcase, right? Last week, 2.8.
Mighty have fallen.
Yeah, 2.8 million at the Apple showcase, which is only 0.08 more, 80,000 more people watched the Apple showcase than the Switch 1 only showcase in March. The Switch September showcase is number 3, the one we just covered and we've been talking about. 2.92 million people watched that Nintendo Direct. And second place was Summer Games Fest, 3.08. So 106, only, I say only, but only 160,000 or 0.16 people watched Summer Games Fest more than Nintendo's own put this crap up on YouTube, or on 6 a.m. on a Thursday or Friday morning. The biggest was the Switch 2 Direct Showcase, 6.3, more than double Summer Games Fest.
And something to point out, the Direct is going to get chopped up and used in short form content from content creators,
right,
all over the place, whereas TGS is not going to be, or
So
not TGS, but
the
Summer
biggest,
Games Fest is not
right.
going to be cut up like that.
But the biggest eyeballs, the biggest singular moment of eyeballs on anything was Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in April. If you wanted to single in what had the biggest at any point in given time, what was the biggest amount of people watching something live? By a country mile, it was the Switch 2 showcase in April.
Well, because new generations mean
that
something.
makes sense. That makes sense, right? But it's more just shocking to me of how close that September Direct had nearly as many eyeballs at 6 a.m. on the Best Coast.
Yeah.
As all of Summer Game Fest in June. Which is why I'm like, why are you spending money on this crap? Actually, I don't want to say crap. Why are you spending? Because I actually agree with you. Let me rephrase this here. I really want there to be a singular place where everyone kind of meets and presents. So the idea of Summer Games Fest is something I very much value, but I also, on the flip side of this coin here, where it's they have to, if everyone's in a singular event, which means they have to compete and pay for it. So from the marketing side, it's almost like, why bother?
Well,
because why spend a bunch of money if our own thing, our own companies? But again, the one thing that's interesting here too, though, Microsoft and Sony State of Plays and Microsoft are nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
It's just Nintendo Directs. Nintendo Direct is the only, in top 5 anyways, the only game in town in the top 5 that gets eyeballs watching it. And Jeff is the only, and he's second place, so it ain't bad. He's the only person at Summer Games Fest to get people's eyeballs. So if you are Sony or Microsoft or any third party, you actually might want to be at Summer Games Fest because he is the only dog in town who's getting that number of eyeballs on something besides Nintendo.
Yeah, so there's two things here that I think the reason that you want, the E3, why E3 was such a thing for so long, or what Jeff is trying to turn Summer Games Fest into, or has, but wants to make it more prestigious than E3 was. E3 has a world of hype around it already. The excitement is already there, and it's where all the media and content create, it brings the eyeballs for you.
Yeah.
right? You don't have to drive hype. You
So
don't have to do any of that.
I love what he's doing, but I can kind of
Right.
see just where it's not really, maybe it's just not worth it for some, especially
Eh,
this is why Nintendo, and if anything, the only thing I'm maybe the most thing I'm proving here is why is Nintendo never at Summer Games Fest? This is why.
this is exactly why. Yeah. The other thing is that Nintendo has consistently delivered for 8 years now.
The directs.
Well, not just the directs, but like if you are a Nintendo fan, if Nintendo is what you have, like
Hmm.
Nintendo has given you something you specifically will care about for 8 years now. So when
Right.
they have a direct, there is something for you specifically to be engaged
Yeah,
by.
they had a damn good, if not an all-time best run on a system.
Oh, I mean, killed it. Killed it.
Killed it with the Switch.
Absolutely killed it. Microsoft hasn't delivered anything like that since the 360.
Right.
The 360 b- almost could do no wrong, even with the Rings of Death and the
Until
other
Connect, I
problems.
would argue, which by the end.
Yeah, but that was really the end, and it wasn't something that was super necessary. Like you didn't like it didn't get the hype that everything else. Like it didn't overshadow anything else. They didn't try
No,
to
but
make
it
Connect.
did make you really groan when they brought it, when they were trotting it out, and you're like, "Hey,
Yeah,
let's talk about the Connect now." Ugh, let's not.
no, I mean, and that's fair, but it's just like by that time, the 360 was already just so great. You already saw three things that you cared about
Yeah,
before the Connect thing came on. Um, Microsoft just hasn't delivered. Now, Sony uh, had an all-time great run with the PS4. I mean, the
yeah,
PS4 is still delivers to this day. You could buy a cheap PS4 and spend the next 5 years playing just that backlog, plus getting some of the PS5 games that came out. Like you could play that on your PS4 Pro.
yeah,
Like you could do that and you wouldn't miss anything. Like you'd feel great. You're gonna have a
yeah.
great library. You're gonna have a great time, and you won't run out of games. There's just a shitload of great games on PS4. PS5 hasn't delivered. It's 5 years into its generation, and there's no reason that they've really made a good argument for the jump to PS5.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not really. If you're telling me that, Ghost of Yote, which we're both hyped for, Ghost of Yote, they couldn't have made a version that looked great on PS4?
Oh, they could have.
Right. Absolutely they could have. There's nothing on
They were just
PS5 yet.
cutting. Yeah, they're just cutting the cord with Yote, where it's just like, all right, enough PS4. We gotta
Well,
really kind of like convince people to jump into our next generation.
yeah, and that's a real problem that I think all of them are going to face forever now. Is every generation they're going to be hesitant to cut that cord because what if line don't go up?
Exactly.
What if sales,
Which is interesting because
and
again,
because architecturally speaking, there's no reason not to have backwards compatibility anymore.
right. It's interesting though, in a way, it feels like Nintendo's actually kind of going that way faster. Where next year, from what I understand, like Yoshi and the Amazing Storybook and Mario Tennis Fever and Fire Emblem, I think they're Switch 2 only, right? They could
If they're
easily
smart, yes.
they could easily be Switch 1, easily be Switch 1 games, but they are being Switch 2 only games. So it's kind of like interesting how they're sort of like, no, you're gonna need a Switch 2. Although Tamagotchi Life and Rhythm Heaven Groove cross or are Switch 1 games. Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are Switch 1, they're ports, but the Switch 1
Well, but like
games.
Nintendo is steady and traditionalist, so they're doing the same thing they do every single time they bring out a new system. There's that weird year where, the sales maybe not, I mean the sales are crazy good, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying like they expect a weird year where maybe not everyone transitions yet, and so they have a timeline, right?
I think again, it's going to be next year. Next year is going to be so super interesting to me. They're going to kill it this holiday season. They killed it at launch. They're going to kill it this holiday season. They're by no means are they in any sort of danger or trouble of underselling. What's going to happen is next year, kind of going back to the original topic here, is like the value proposition is really going to hit home
Yes.
really hard
Yeah,
next
yeah, yeah.
year.
Yeah, it is,
So I
definitely.
think when you start looking at what everyone's bringing and offering, and when and you see what Expedition costs and Silk Song costs and what these friend slops games cost, and then you sit there and you start looking, and then you look, okay, well, what is PS5, Xbox, Nintendo? What are we getting for $70, $80? And you're really gonna have to sit there and be like, what? Yeah, what am I getting for $80? Why should I pay,
Outside
$80?
of outside of Nintendo, how many publishers can justify themselves when you see the success of Silk Song, when you see the success of Clair Obscure? Like, how many publishers can justify? Because that's where I think the budgets balloon. I think publishers eat up most of that profit.
Hmm.
You know, and so that middleman is less and less actually important, and I think Silk Song and again Clair Obscure, like, they prove that that middleman is less and less important. Now,
Yeah.
granted, for, like, PlayStation, obviously Sony's gonna be a middleman, they're gonna publish their own stuff onto it, but, like, do you need another publisher to get you published on Sony? Like, if you're an indie developer now, why hasn't Sony figured out how to make it easy as hell to just get
Mhm.
on PlayStation digitally? Steam is already easy as hell to get on digitally.
And that's
You
the
know,
interesting thing is that there was a copyright recently of Steam Frame, which Microsoft, or not Microsoft, or which people are thinking that might just be the console version of Steam Deck,
mhm.
will be Steam Frame, which I mean, I'm like Microsoft should have been the one to do that, but
Should have made that deal.
should
Should
have
have
made
made
that
that deal
deal.
a long time ago.
Truthfully, um, I think honestly, I think a Steam Frame could be a huge disruptor, but I don't think Valve's going to go for like some jugular. It'll be an enthusiast product that they mostly sell on their website, like a Steam Deck.
I mean, the thing is that the Steam Deck now is weak by comparison to the other handhelds and stuff. But like when the Steam Deck was first coming out, you remember how like people were flabbergasted, like, who would want this thing? Why is it this isn't they nobody wants a handheld PC, and then they basically started a market. So the Steam Deck 2 comes out. Right now the Steam Deck is still a good entry level handheld PC. Basically, it's
Yeah,
it's good, and it's also one of the cheaper ones. If they come out with a Steam Deck 2 to compete with the ROG Ally and the other high end ones, it'll be more expensive and it'll be a new generation of Steam Deck. But they could do the same thing for home consoles that play Steam games. You know, what was the you really love the $300 Xbox? You
Series
know,
S.
it's like, okay, now you can play your whole Steam library on your TV and have all the convenience of a console, while having your Steam library basically right there at the touch of the fingertips, and it's $300 to get you in the door. And it's not the most amazing thing ever, but you can mod it, which a lot of people do
Yeah,
with the Steam Deck, and it's not going to break your bank, ideally. You know, I think that, yeah, it could be a huge disruptor, but it's like the main thing that Steam is a disruptor for is they made it 10 times easier to get your game to an audience. They're a storefront that like you can just get on. You can just get there. You don't
yeah, and,
need
and I know a lot of indies talk about being buried on Steam because of how much
yes,
comes out all the time. But I'm like, there's really nothing. There's really nothing Steam can do about that. If 20 games, 30 games are released daily on Steam,
right.
what can you do? What can you do?
Yeah, you
Like,
can't get mad at Steam for the same reason that you love Steam.
yeah, like
Oh, it's so easy to get my game onto Steam. Dang, that pisses me off. Like you know, uh, I'm not saying that it isn't frustrating for very valid reasons, but it is still like, well, yeah, that's why Steam's great though, is that it's 30 games a day come out on it. Like that's amazing. Um, and for indie games like that that are worried about not standing out, that is where it makes the most sense to do content creator marketing.
yeah,
Streamers and stuff, like that's where it makes the most sense because they're the ones that build the most uh word of mouth, basically. Like that is the only way you can pay to have word of mouth, essentially. um and again, that's targeted marketing. If you're picking the correct content creators or the correct streamers, you are targeting a specific audience. It's the easiest way to do target marketing ever, basically, so far. And yet, so many times, it seems like companies will like carpet bomb streamers rather than be selective about who they
Right.
choose. And so they're spending loads and loads of money that they could spend smarter. They could spend half the money on half the creators and be significantly smarter about what audience they get higher returns per dollar. Um, and I don't know why Twitch specifically Twitch. I mean, I don't know enough about Kick and I don't know enough about YouTube streaming necessarily, but I don't know why Twitch doesn't just have essentially like a producer that streamlines that process. Obviously, they want a kickback, they want money, they want to be middlemen, but like they really should just sort of figure out how to insert themselves usefully, having a person that helps marketers target creators.
Mm.
That would be a real easy way to put yourself as the middleman. Have a person who's actually smart and understands, which creators are best for which products or which brands. And then it's like the brand comes to you to pick the creators rather than shotgunning a bunch of creators. You could have
Yeah.
a creator curator.
Create a
They
curator.
loved
There's a
manager
mouthful.
of creator
Bars.
curation.
There
Uh,
you go.
there you go, Twitch.
But that's
Pay me
like that's kind of
grand
like
a
on
year and I'll do it.
marketing stand. Like,
Um,
let's talk a little bit about like what does this mean for the average Joe, the consumer, the guy standing here. What
well, I
is the
think value is reduced. Games have never been longer, but also games are much more expensive. Well, okay. I'm going to take the devil's advocate. I do agree that the value is reduced because less sales are going to happen. You're going to have less access to the games you want to play. But I'm going to take the devil's advocate approach. Are games worth $80?
no?
Yeah. No, yeah, I'd say they are because dollar per hour gameplay, especially for a AAA title that's going to be 30 hours long, like Ghost of Yotei, 20 to 30 hours long, it's still dollar per hour, the cheapest form of entertainment you can get right now.
I could never justify. I mean, I would I buy an $80 Xenoblade? Yeah, I would. But like, would I be happy about it? No.
If you put 100 hours into it,
100, motherfucker, I'm gonna put 500 into that.
you're going to put 500 hours into it, then what the fuck are you complaining about $80 for?
You should not be charging $80 for a luxury product like that.
500 hours of
That's
entertainment?
ridiculous.
For 500 hours of entertainment. If a
Totally
movie charged
unacceptable.
me $80 to see it, I'd be like, what? And here's the thing: we both know that there are people that would pay $80 for certain movies. Of like, oh, it's the it's the like best version of James Cameron's, on the best projectors on the oh, I'll pay $80 to see the most perfect representation of what James Cameron wants to see. We know people like that. So it's like, and that's for a 2-hour film.
Look,
Okay.
saying, I mean, like I said, I do, but I wouldn't be happy about it.
Right. I'm just saying, like, and then when you bring in replayability, of games, like that $80 price tag again is more and more reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable from the amount, like the sales they want to make. I think the higher price point actually shrinks the size of the market considerably.
No,
And
absolutely.
that's why I argue it is not reasonable.
The other
But
thing that
in
makes it
terms of just
80
like, is a game
unreasonable,
worth the money? Is a AAA game worth $80?
it's a
Is
luxury. I mean, games are luxury products. I think we should
and
like not
yeah,
forget that.
totally true. But like, pick a game you thought was just okay. Horizon Forbidden West. You thought that was an okay game.
Pretty good. I liked
Yeah,
it.
pretty good. Pretty good. It was I don't know how many hours I put into that. At least 40, I think, collecting
Yeah.
everything and doing the thing and stuff. But the main story was like 20 hours long or something like that. And it's like 20 hours is $4 an hour at $80 for the game. And then there's another 20 hours of content before the DLC and all that stuff. And that's if you don't replay the game. That argument for $80, yeah, all right, I could see the value
I
there.
don't know. I
But
feel
I'm
it's
not going to buy 5 games at $80
right. But the argument's dumb because you have games like Fortnite, which will literally give you hundreds of hours for free.
if you like multiplayer.
If you like multiplayer. No, that's not even true anymore. Because now the all the games within that ecosystem now you
Sure.
now
Yeah. No, that's
you could
true.
literally play these weird survival games like Lego Fortnite and never interact with another human.
The, the thing that I'm getting at is more like when games were $50 for the higher end games, uh, it's reasonable for a person to buy 2 games a month. An extreme situation, somebody's buying a game a week, $200 a month, that's it. But
Yeah.
like an average person, someone spending $100 a month on their hobby of games, reasonable. There's going to be way, way
You know,
higher. There's going to be way, way lower.
I honestly don't think on average most people buy more than I would say the average thing is most people probably buy one game every 3 months
Okay,
on
totally fair.
average.
Uh, but my point is like
Like
if
you're an
it's 50
enthusiast if you're
bucks,
buying two full price games a month.
yeah, which is probably the only people that would be listening to us. I don't, I don't know if
Okay,
you're like,
fair enough.
yeah, our whole shtick is that I'm casual and he's not, and yeah, okay, but like I don't think you're necessarily casual if you're listening. The things we talk about, we're going pretty, going pretty balls deep on this stuff. Like my point is like, okay, 2 games a month is reasonable for a hardcore gamer,
Yeah.
let's say. Uh, but let's say that was when games were $50 a pop. You're spending 100 bucks. Now it's $80 a pop, so you're going to go down to 1 game a month. Okay, you're getting a lot of gameplay out of it. You're getting a lot of hours into it and stuff. But now it creeps up towards $100, closer to $100. Are you more likely to pick those $8 games instead of an $80 game next month?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe there'll be a sale. It's just there's more and more arguments why you shouldn't buy an $80 game if $100 a month is what your budget is. If your budget is $80 for the month and there's five $8 games that you're all like, hell yeah, will you get the same amount of playtime out of those as you will as this $80 game?
You probably get more.
Right. Now you're changing the argument for every single gamer. And that's where I say it's bad. That's where I say it shrinks your market. Why shrink your market? You're telling me you're not making enough money at $70 a pop? You're telling me that your record profits of line constantly going up? You're telling me that like the record profits you scream about every year, brag about to investors every year, that's not enough? So you need to shrink the market? Because their hope, obviously, the hope is that they're not going to lose any sales. Some other asshole's going to lose sales.
Yeah.
PlayStation doesn't think they'll lose sales. They think, oh no, Microsoft's going to lose sales. And Microsoft goes like, we're not going to lose sales. It'll be PlayStation or Nintendo that loses. That's why Microsoft goes out of its way to say like, oh, we're not competing with Nintendo. They make kids' toys. That's not what they're saying, but like it
Kind
feels
of the
like the
gist.
implication. And Nintendo is really the only guy who's not actually competing with anybody because they know they're going to sell games because they make the games that people keep buying. They make Fire Emblem, and yeah, okay, it's $70, it's $80 this time, but like they're delivering on a series that they know sells all the time. Nintendo's, do I think it's going
Right.
to hurt
Yeah.
Nintendo? It's going to shrink their market? Yes.
It is very much a first world problem to sort of whine about that. But again, it's just sort of like, why buy a new system then? Like, why even make a new system if you're
Well,
not gonna?
that's the real problem that we're facing about new generations now is like they're talking about a PS6 and how excited they are about the architecture of a PS6. Can you say a single friggin' thing to me that would make me think that a PS6 is going to deliver something the PS5 isn't capable of right now?
But what if there's a portable PS6?
Okay.
Because that is the big rumor right now is that there's going to be a lower spec end portable one.
Yeah, but it's
And
still
there's
going to be the size of a ROG Ally.
Right. Yes.
That shit ain't portable. How many people? No, but is like how many people are actually like throwing their $2,000 ROG Ally? I guess it's $1,000 ROG Ally in their backpack to run around and like who's pulling
Are
that out on
you
the train or
telling
the bus?
me
Yeah,
this isn't portable, Andrew? You're telling me this doesn't fit in your Jinko jeans?
yeah. Compared to my PC, absolutely. But you know what that is? You're just playing that on the toilet or in bed. You're not
Yeah,
taking that anywhere with you.
it's a chunky boy tablet, is what it is.
Right. You're not taking that anywhere with you. Okay.
How dare
The
you?
the Odin 2, the Odin 2, which I very kindly will be getting the chance to check out soon, is the size of a Vita and plays GameCube and down for hours and hours and hours. Yeah, that's the full size one. The Odin 2
Yeah.
is the size of the PSP.
I have a smaller one around here. I don't know where it is, but yeah, it's significantly smaller
Yeah,
than.
it's just like the argument for a portable PlayStation is like, well, that's not portable. Like the Portal, the PlayStation Portal right now offers me the same capability, except I have to have my PS5 on. Because I'm not going to take the PlayStation Portal anywhere the same way I'm not going to take my PS6P anywhere. Like the reason the DS was so kick-ass and why handhelds were so kick-ass is you could throw it in a pocket, throw it in a backpack, throw it wherever, and you're in line at Disneyland. You got time to kill at Disneyland? Oh,
Yeah.
everybody's got their DS. We're just going to hop on whatever.
You want something like the size of this,
Right.
and you just
I
flip
want
it
good
open,
games for that.
and you just flip it open, and you're just gonna play games.
I'm going to replay my entire GameCube and PS2 library, of which I have. It's the biggest library I have, I think, is GameCube, PS2, and 360. I'm just going to replay all that on a handheld, and it's going to be great. And it's just like, but that's the handheld offering. Okay, PS6 is going to come out and they're going to be like, yeah, you could play PS5 quality games on your PS6 handheld. Great. I can play PS5 quality games on my PS4. Like it's harder and hard because architecture has gotten to be the same. You know, say whatever you want about PS3. The reason that they went for completely unique architecture is the same reason why every console up until that point, you know, had different architecture. They were trying to get the specs they wanted to make a better argument for their console.
Yeah.
Off the shelf parts, very smart from a business standpoint, very cool for, you know, people that are into PCs and building PCs and stuff like that. Not very cool for making an argument as to why your console's better than the other guys when they're essentially the same set of Legos put together differently.
I mean, so I mean that's a whole argument on
Well,
why like PC gaming is so much better than console gaming now, because all consoles are shitty PCs.
The reason I argued that console gaming is better than PC gaming, even though I have a high-end PC, is that console, and this is changing, PC gaming is becoming much more plug and play accessible, but console gaming is streamlined to just work.
Yeah.
It's gotten worse to where the console has to update all the friggin' time, like a PC.
The PC is getting better, the console is getting worse.
Yeah, it's the console's being shitified.
They're sort of like magnetizing towards each other, towards this shitty middle.
It's wild to me how that's changing. They're getting rid of all the reasons to buy a console and like basically pushing their own audience towards PC essentially. I don't, anybody who says like console exclusivity matters in this day and age, you know, they're arguing that purely from nostalgia in my point of view.
I
Like,
mean,
it just doesn't matter
The
anymore.
flip side, though, is that like it kind of does, and maybe matters more than ever now, because if you have a gaming capable PC, what reason on God's green earth right now do you have to buy an Xbox, to really honestly even
Well,
buy a PlayStation?
when I say that I think they're arguing that from nostalgia, what I mean is there's no actual factual reason why one console is better than the other.
Right.
You know, like
Nintendo's truly the only person left with exclusives.
right, because they built a console that is wacky, basically. They built a unique
But
console.
I mean,
in a lot of ways.
they could put most of their games on PC. They could.
That's true.
They absolutely could. I've argued they should for their sort of hardcore niche titles that are never going to break a ceiling. There's a barrier that they're just never going to get past, and it just they just sell so many millions more. All they would do, I mean, again, they could take
You
the
just want
Sony
Xenoblade
approach.
on PC so that you
I
can get
do.
mods and
In
uprises them.
Astral Chain and Bayo 2 and Bayo 3 and Fire Emblem as well on PC. That'd be fucking kick ass. And it would do what Sony's basically trying to do right now, which is you get people into the series so that when the next game comes out exclusively for their system, people like, they can't control their FOMO, so they go get that system and they go get that game so they can play it a year or two early. And I don't even think it has to be that early. I mean, Xenoblade 2 is 8 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not a new game.
You could put that on PC, sell millions of copies, and that is millions of copies of sales that were never ever going to come to the Switch because it's 8 years old. And a lot of people are saying like, well, they'll do a definitive edition, they'll do a Switch 2 patch. Maybe they will, but again, like the Switch audience is just it's not that big for these hardcore niche games. But I guess just going into the holiday season, it's so weird to think about this now too. Is like going into the holiday season, what are the big games from all these companies? You got to remember, Call of Duty is a big Microsoft game.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to be on PlayStation and PC, but it is a big Microsoft game. The big Xbox game of the holiday season is Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. Yeah. They traded Halo for Call of Duty.
Pretty much.
And it's looking like Battlefield 6 is going to eat Call of Duty's lunch.
Yeah, nobody's really happy or excited with the new Call of Duty, and I don't even blame them really.
Well, how much have you really seen about the new Call of Duty even? Like nobody's talking about it.
I've seen the two big trailers, and both of them were really trying to sell the sort of like high-tech espionage aspect of it, and it all it really does is go like, why'd you cancel Perfect Dark?
Right. There's very little hype to the new Call of Duty, and it's weird. I don't know.
And Sony's big game is YoTei, which we're excited about. There's a weirdness though where I do see online where the buzz is a little tepid for YoTei. It worries me a little bit because a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't look way better than Tsushima, and
looks wise, it's not.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but how much further could we realistically go here?
Well, that's another thing that's going to become harder and harder for the value add proposition for like generations. Is like PS6 isn't going to look much better, if at all better, than the PS5.
Exactly, and there's a fairness to like, well, Assassin's Creed Shadows came out this year, and Rise of the Ronin came out last year, and then Ronin came out this year on PC. So it's kind of like, yeah, this big open world, ancient Japan kind of kick. If you wanted to go to the 1600s. You could do that with Shadows. If you wanted to go to the 1800s, you could do that with Ronin. And this one is also 1600s for YoTei. So it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of true. We're definitely we're not lacking for any ancient Japanese open world samurai simulator. We're not lacking that. We're not. YoTei's coming into a sort of much more crowded field than the first one.
Well, also like this year, specifically Sony exclusives, like how good was this year for PS5 exclusives? Like Ghost of YoTei is like the biggest exclusive, and it's not out yet, but it will be soon. But it's like, how many other Sony exclusives really got your dick hard?
Christ, what even came out this year that was a Sony exclusive?
Right, that's like
for releases for this year. What is
Death Stranding 2, obviously. Yeah, that was the only one that I could think of.
That's true. Death Stranding 2. I always forget about that. When people are like you there's a weird defense force for that game that like insists and down it's going to be it is absolutely, people loved it. It is going to be game of the year. It is going to be
it's gone. Nobody's talking about it anymore. I don't know.
Like, I don't think anyone was talking about it when it came out. It kind of like came out like, oh yeah, like Kojima's wacky adventures continue.
And people who loved it really, really loved it. People who hated it really, really hated it. And then so far, a lot of people like me in the middle of just like, I don't get it, but it's got quality. Like was that Metal Gear Solid Delta? Was that an exclusive to Sony?
No.
That wasn't. That's on
MLB The Show came out this year, which is
nice.
Usual. They come out every year on every console now. That's a funny story with that when a judge in America ordered them to make it multi-platform.
Really?
Yes, yeah. So because Sony bought the MLB license, and then 2K stopped making their really crappy baseball games. So someone literally said it was anti-consumer for Sony to own the MLB license and not put on every. And a judge agreed and said, "You know what? That's fair. Like if you buy the MLB license, you need
Gotta
to
go
put
on
that game on.
everything.
You
Huh.
need to put that game on everything." So it ended up on the Switch One. Um, so
No,
yeah, you have.
Snake Eater is a PS5 exclusive, according to the Googles.
Is it? I don't think it is.
No, it says that right here on Google, and then like the next thing down is for sale on Xbox. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the
Google's
Google
useless.
AI, it's working great.
Google's it's so useless. Um,
But yeah, Death Stranding 2, MLB The Show, Lost Soul aside, which that was that game in development for 9 years and it came out as a wet fart, unfortunately.
didn't hear a single thing about that. Didn't even I remember that now
Bro,
that
it
you
was
say it, but
playable at PlayStation Experience when we went
yeah, I remember.
like that many years ago.
That's wild. Ballad
Finally
of
came out.
Antara, I didn't hear anything about either.
Yeah, it finally came out and it was really good. Days Gone remastered, hooray. Um,
He's
yeah.
gone. Days Gone is another game that I've tried. I think I've started that game 6 times, 7 times, and I
Mm,
always get a few hours into it and then peter out. And I don't know why. Like it should be exactly up my alley.
yeah.
I don't know what it is
So
about it.
all things considered, not really a great year for Sony. Lost Soul aside was a dud. Um, and MLB The Show is like, oh, well, whatever. MLB The Show comes out every year, and so Death Stranding 2, and then we're gonna finish it out with Ghost of Yotei. And there was a Days Gone remastered. Woohoo!
Yeah,
Um,
do any of the titles convince you that a PS5 was necessary to run it?
no, 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 God, no. Lord,
Hmm.
no. Maybe you could argue Death Stranding 2, but I also don't
Death
care.
Stranding 2 looks incredible. It
Yeah.
does. I mean, and also like the character models incredible. Even outside of cinematics, like the character models look incredible. Leah Sado looks like Leah
But
Sado.
let me ask you, it's because Death Stranding 1 was a PS4 game. Now, obviously, the way the game is now, probably couldn't run on a PS4. But could the gameplay experience, the gameplay mechanics, the open world mechanics of Death Stranding 2, could you have found a way to run that on PS4?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue, yeah. I there's some times where you're moving quickly on like a vehicle that maybe the loading
Mm,
of a PS4 wouldn't.
right. Okay.
But
Yeah.
even then, like so far, at least the areas that I was in, like nothing's like there's not like a shitload on the horizon, or it's like things, like when you're running through a city and it's loading so much stuff, like say in Spider-Man 2 where you're like moving through the city
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
fast and you don't have any loading lag.
Yeah.
Like that's a justification.
Spider-Man
That
2
was
is
the justification.
such a great example of like this is you know you see why this doesn't work on PS4 if you stop and slow down.
Right.
Like if you stop, slow down, if you went to the surface level and you walked around the streets, you'd realize, oh, this is definitely why it's a PS5 only game. But when you're zipping around on the tops of the buildings,
Never think about it.
you never think about it. You probably don't
Well,
even see it.
I do think that that's an interesting. We should talk about that for a minute. Um, in all the ways the PS5 does improve over the PS4, and hardware wise, the PS5 is a big jump from the
Yeah,
PS4.
yeah,
The argument is not that the PS5 wasn't a jump from the PS4. The argument is they haven't done anything with it to justify the new generation. They haven't done anything to justify the money that we spent
yeah.
to get
And
into the new generation.
I think we might just be at that point where, like, from a gameplay mechanic standpoint, there's not really anything you can do that
Well, I think that's you
can't
just brought
already
up
be
an
done.
interesting thing. Maybe the reason is that a lot of the improvements are things that if you're playing the game and enjoying the game, you're not paying attention to. It's like it's the fast loading when you're zipping around, you don't even think about how
Yeah.
this couldn't be done on a PS4. And so that is I'm going to acknowledge that as a blind spot. That could absolutely there might be games that like just
Mhm.
there's no way would it be on a PS4 and because it was done well enough, you just don't even realize it.
Yeah.
For any of the Xboxes, because I can't even keep any of the models' names straight. That's just another thing that their marketing department at Xbox, whoever is running the marketing at Xbox and signing off on these naming conventions, Quaaludes. They got to be like doing Quail. Like I don't know what like none of that makes sense. And I know what they're doing. They don't want to move away from Xbox Series X or Xbox Series because they're afraid people won't connect the Xbox brand if they give it a new name. But Nintendo went from the Wii to the Wii U to the Switch, and they're doing fine. You can give your new console a new name. I promise you, because you're still going to have Microsoft or the Xbox logo on it.
There's a rumor going around that Nintendo really did want to name it the Super Switch, and they were
Should've.
talked out. And they were talked out of it because they're like, it'll confuse people too much, like the Wii U. You need to put the 2 there to like emphasize that this is the
Yeah.
follow up.
Whoever said that is the dumbest motherfucker alive.
I don't know. Wii U burned them so hard.
The Wii U was already a dumb name. That was a dumb name. The Wii was a dumb name. There's lots of reasons why that was dumb.
But brilliant because it's stuck in your mind.
Sure, but like Wii U, dumb name. Copying the convention that everyone has nostalgia for, the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, like easily a smart thing. They could have called it the Super Nintendo Switch.
Super Nintendo Switch would have been. I would say Nintendo Super Switch. My preference was Nintendo Switch Advanced.
Also a good one, not a bad one.
That was my sort of like if I were to name the Switch 2, what would I have called it? The Switch Advanced.
Switch Advanced, also a good one. I'm just saying, like when you the Switch 2, lame. Everyone's gonna call it the Switch 2 anyway. Give it a good name. Give it a name that is catchy or unique, and then people are gonna call it the Switch 2 anyway. That's just what's gonna happen. I shouldn't say the guy's the dumbest motherfucker alive. I don't know. Who knows what the other options were?
Come on, the guy who said Xbox Series S and X is way dumber than the guy.
That guy's dumb.
But yeah,
whatever committee came up with the Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X Pro. What is it? Wait, it's the Xbox Series S, the Xbox Series X, the Xbox One X?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, that was last gen. There's the Xbox One, and then they split it between the Pro, because there's not an Xbox Pro, right? They called their Pro version the Xbox One X.
God,
that is the Pro model of the Xbox One, because remember there was Xbox One and there was Xbox One X. They also, for reasons unknown, after they made a Pro model of the Xbox One, after they made their Pro version of that system, they decided from that point on, all non-Pro models or non-advanced models of the Xbox One X will be called the Xbox One S.
Okay.
There's Xbox One, which was eventually phased out. So there's Xbox One X, Xbox One S, and then the next generation was Series X, Series S, Series.
Stupid.
It's like there's the Xbox, the 360, the One, the Series.
Okay. So you want to know how they came up with these titles or these names? They paid a company to send out a bunch of surveys to people who are paid to do nothing but take surveys.
Yeah, and they cost them millions of dollars too.
Yeah. And people just clicked like they'll ask them inane questions of like, what's the most recognizable name here? Well, which one seems like you'd know it's an Xbox? Which one feels like the next generation in gaming? And people answer, and it creates like a dot graph, like where it's a dot graph's not right, but where it shows like bubbles for people's answers and how they ranked them and which one does the best and which demographic voted which way. And it is always bad. I have never seen one of these surveys give you a good answer. You know, one of the reasons why you used to go to creative directors and why like certain madmen were so beloved is because you pick the guy that has the taste you want to sell to. That was the whole game. Creative directors used to
Yeah,
be tastemakers. They used to have taste. And now it's like, no, I have data.
I have data
I have the
exactly.
sheet that says this many people between the ages of 30 and 50 recognize the Series X as the next Xbox console. And someone was like, well, I guess that's what we got to
Boy.
name it. The least inventive thing you could do.
Well, and you pointed out
Jesus.
next year sounds like a great year for Xbox. Sounds like it, but
Yeah.
we've been here before.
Eh,
Fable, Forza Horizon, Tokyo, um, Gears of War, E-Day, GTA 6, with multiplat, but whatever.
Would be a huge, huge
Sounds
year.
on paper like a really huge year for them, but again, we kind of been here before.
We'll see what gets canceled.
Let's see which one of those gets canceled, I
Yeah.
guess. And then Nintendo's next year, to me right now is good, but it's okay.
Well,
You're
they've only gone over really the
you're
first half of their year, right?
right. You're a casual guy here, but does not this strike you as a sort of year 3 or 4 year? Year 2, year 0.5 to 1.5, if you will. Because it started in June, right? That's when the Switch
Mhm.
2 came out. The first half of the second half of their first year and the first half of their second year, their games are Yoshi and the Amazing Book, which may not actually have any names. It might just be purely a puzzle platformer. Yoshi and the Amazing Book, Mario Tennis, Super Mario Wonder Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, Pokepia, the life sim Pokemon game, Fire Emblem, uh, whatever the Fates Weave or Weaving, whatever Weaving Fate, I forget what it's called already. Fortune's Weave, sorry, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave.
Right. Yeah. Fortune's
Um,
Weave.
and I think those are their known announced titles. There might have been something else there in the spring. Um, but I'm like, okay, so a port with some updated stuff and Mario Wonder, the Yoshi puzzle platformer, Mario Tennis game, a Fire Emblem game, a Pokemon Life Sim. This doesn't strike me as like, okay, we gotta come out swinging hard for our second year.
Well,
Oh,
okay,
and
but they're launch games.
Splatoon Raiders, I guess, the spinoff to Splatoon spinoff.
They're two launch games were Mario Kart and DK Bonanza.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess that's pretty on brand for a launch game.
Mm.
But as like a uber casual view, this is even more casual than I would say I am. But it's like they didn't launch with a true Mario game or a Zelda game, and
Right?
that feels weird already.
And that feels weird, and that's continuing into next year.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I think it is not necessarily a prestigious first year.
Yeah.
It's not
Oh, and
necessarily.
and also Switch 1, Tamagotchi Life and Rhythm Heaven Groove as well next year.
But I do think that for its audience, solid. Like
Solid,
there
but
is
also
something for
odd.
every different type of Switch player. They are hitting every type of Switch player, every from casual to
I
the
I
most hardcore
do
Switch player.
I do think there's a weirdness on how so much of it is spin-offs. Like there's a Splatoon spin-off
Yeah.
and a Yoshi spin-off, and spin-off of I forget what there's other games that are just sort of like, well, they're not really like, we're not in like there's a port of an already existing Mario 2D Mario game. And I'm
Right.
like, it's kind of weird how they're not talking about the three big
New.
pillars, like a Pokemon spinoff as well, a new Mario, a new Zelda, a new Animal Crossing, a mainline Pokemon game. Because the Pokemon game this year is a spinoff, and the Pokemon game next year is a spinoff. Like they're not like, it's not the next generation games. So it's like weird how you're so I don't know, holding back on your big heavy, like Fire Emblem's getting a brand new game. And I guess Mario Tennis technically it's a brand new game, but it's like there's a weirdness to it where it's kind of like it almost reminds me in a weird sort of way, and this is kind of a good thing. This would be a good thing for some people, almost GameCube. Where GameCube they started getting
Mm.
really weird and experimental with their franchises.
I if they did, if they did go that direction, I would be more likely to buy a Switch 2 faster.
Hmm.
um, get weird. I don't know. I want to. Part of the reason that the Wii was so great is it had so many weird,
Yeah.
like it just had the right mix of weird shit on it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
They're gonna have
to
to figure out what they do with Smash Brothers too, and I do think next year we'll get that answer.
yeah. The thing is that Nintendo has a lot on the table that it could announce and blow everybody's minds.
Hmm.
If they've truly kept it a secret like this, if they suddenly, put their dick on the table and dropped a completely new Mario game, completely new Zelda game
But
coming
then
in the
you gotta
next
also
year.
wonder too, maybe this is okay when you're playing a game of poker or whatever, right? And you see your opponents are floundering. Is that when you start raising the stakes? Or do you go like, "Well, they're floundering. I can win with a smaller hand."
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I don't think Nintendo even looks across the table at PlayStation.
I don't think about you at all.
Yeah, I don't think they think about them at all. I think Nintendo is playing its own game now.
Mm.
Like I really
I mean, that seems like common wisdom, but part of me is like, there's no way they're completely blind to what's going on.
no, they know, and I definitely think that under the since Iwata died, they are much more investor face.
Yeah.
But I think that there's enough traditionalism, from the guys in charge, essentially that
Mhm.
when
Yeah, part of me just kind of
Miyazaki
sits there
and
and
Koizumi
wonders.
and those guys
Yeah.
all leave or die off,
Yeah.
I think Nintendo falls apart for a little while
Mm.
because their bean counters are all investor facing. The reason that they're having to argue, I guarantee you, there is no creator coming up now that will ever have the power and sway that Koizumi or Miyazaki have over Nintendo. Like Nintendo's just not that company anymore. They still have big dick energy. They still swing it around and smack people with it and get away with demands. But like in the future when they're gone, I sort of don't see that happening. I don't see creatives having any sort of control at all.
You think creative input's going to kind of die with the old hats.
Yeah, I think that they are more and more turning towards Western corporate practices. Not totally. They are always going to be different.
Yeah.
Japanese culture is drastically different than Western culture, both business and socially and stuff. Yes. But part of me thinks because, well, like the internet, everyone is more culturally sort of melding. You get this like online weirdo culture that carries across cultures.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, you have people in Hungary wearing memes in English, and you're just like, how the fuck, how does that translate? Like memes are translate across languages now. And they'll be in English and yet everybody knows what the hell they mean. But my point is like that is true about like businesses. Given if there is a massive crash where they realize that the market no longer is actually responding to the actual economy, and there's a lot of boring reasons why I think that, and this isn't the
Mhm.
place to get into it, but like if there is a crash where the separation between the stock market and actual customers and corporate performance uh is seen or sees the light of day, then yeah, you're going to have they'll probably retreat to how they used to do it. But I think right now they're moving more and more towards giving the investors what they want and less about,
Yeah.
in the lead of.
I mean, there's no greater example of this than Sony's deciding they were going to do 12 live service games for the PS5 generation, and they almost all fell apart.
Well, yeah, that was all under what's his fucking, he's
Good old Jim Ryan.
Jim Ryan, yeah. Well, that's actually the perfect example. Sony switching to basically a Western model to run PlayStation. It was very successful for PlayStation 4, but PlayStation 5 obviously is not.
Well, because okay,
They're
what did they
going the
do?
other way. They're going back to tradition.
Yeah, because Sony's whole thing was like they got famous for being the sad dad cinematic walking sim game, right?
Right.
big, expensive third-person, cinematic adventure game. And then for some reason they decided, well, Fortnite makes so much money, and all these other free-to-play games on PC make so much money. We really need to divert all our money and interest into that field.
Yeah, because
And
bean counters only chase.
right, and it immediately bites them in the ass. So now it's kind of like, okay, well, we got to like cancel those plans, cancel those, and it's going to take you years to dig out of that hole because you spent years making a bunch of live service games that either got canceled or concorded themselves. So it's
I
kind
don't
of
want to
like,
start a new front here because we're at like an hour 15, but uh this is the same thing that happened with Hollywood and TV and stuff, right? They became investor driven, which is why they work so hard not to make new franchises because it's
mm,
too risky. New IP
right,
is
yeah.
too risky. It's hard to market. People don't recognize the name.
Here's the funny thing about all that sort of like risk or whatever. If you did a bunch of low, and this is true for gaming, and I think it's true for film and TV. If everyone decided we're not going to do any sequel, we're all going to do a bunch of low budget, like new IPs for much smaller budgets, just a bunch of them, right? Guarantee you, one of those things will become a huge, ginormous hit.
Right.
It'll not only will it pay for every other thing that wasn't a huge hit that year, but it'll literally create like a 10 to 15 year money churning machine. I know that I'm not really familiar. I haven't watched the movie, but Sony Pictures, Sony Animation had a movie that they made, and then Sony Pictures was like, no, no, this won't do anything. It was a new IP, it was a new idea. The dumb white men in charge had no idea, so they pawned it off. Netflix bought it. It is now the most watched Netflix movie in history of
K-pop,
all
K-pop Demon
all
Hunters.
Netflix of all Netflix movies, all Netflix, everything
Oh yeah,
Netflix ever.
amazing.
And it's a Sony film that they just pawned off because like, oh no, this is a bad idea.
This is a
This is
bad
a
idea. I don't like
this is
it.
this is a weird new IP. I don't understand this. Sell it off, to Netflix.
What's
Biggest
K-pop?
and
K-pop's
and
not
and that and that
popular.
and that new idea would have paid for every failure Sony Animation has ever had and will have for foreseeable future, and would have and probably still will be, but would have been like the start of an humongous franchise for Sony. But they're
Incredible.
idiots.
Let that
But
be a
they're
lesson to
idiots,
you. Never
which
say no to
is
K-pop.
which is why again, if like Sony's a good example. They have Ghost of Yote, which probably cost them $200 million. They had Death Stranding 2, which cost them probably $200 million, and probably another $100 million for MLB to keep its gears rolling for another single year. And then Days Gone Remastered sort of make up. They didn't have any other games. They had this one, indie project that they started 10 years ago with Lost Soul Aside, and it was a huge dud. But it's like they released their yearly sports game and two massive games that need to sell 10 million copies each.
And hopefully will.
What a what a great business strategy.
It's not great.
And they're both sequels.
It's not exciting for, well, I don't know. Maybe they turn it around next year and you see a lot of small things because they thought about this several years ago now. I don't know.
Yeah, next year we have Tokon and Soros, which is the spiritual follow-up to Returnal,
Right.
where it's a
Oh yeah.
game about permanent upgrade runs, not roguelike runs, but it's a different game. It's sort of a new IP, but also somewhat familiar.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's kind of cool.
that is
I
kind
like
of
that.
cool, and Tokon is a kind of a definitely a really cool new neat idea. So we'll see what else they announce for next year. Of course,
The
I don't have
temperature
any.
check to round it off is that, Nintendo didn't bring the BD, but nobody else has either. So Nintendo at least is delivering a slate of games that its own audience wants.
Yeah, I mean Microsoft sounds good on paper, but
Well, yeah, that's the thing with Microsoft is like it has a lot of this last year for Microsoft actually hasn't been bad, but
first half
next
was great, and then the second half is like,
empty. Next year the promise is there, but they've they've killed all their goodwill, so I don't know that they're going to deliver. And that's scary. On that note, Chris, your episode was a controversial one. Maybe somebody will get really, really mad at me. Sometimes the comments are not nice about me. But on that note, we've got producers to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Of course, our dude of the week was Chris P. Thank you, Chris. And our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Osnight, Donglemeister, Zyberknight, Scrunami, Croy35, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes. We'll catch you next time.
Later, dudes.